What's going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'll be reviewing the TOLOS Archetype 1.0s. So 3 pros that I have with this model is number 1, the performance for daily wear and for training. So if you're like me and if you want a minimalist shoe for wearing out and about on a casual wear basis, but then wearing to the gym and having them perform pretty well across the board, the Archetype 1.0 can be an awesome option to explore. For context, the current minimalist shoe that I wear the most for those 2 types of activities is the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3. Honestly, I've actually been reaching for the Archetype 1.0 a little bit more than the Primus Lite 3 these days because I do like its appearance a little bit better, and in the gym they perform equally as strong, if not a little bit better, which I'll talk about in my performance section of this review. The second pro that I have with the Archetype 1.0, and this piggybacks off of my first pro, is that I like the appearance of this shoe. It has a nice, subtle appearance to it, and it almost kind of looks like a minimalist shoe blended with a training shoe, which, if you can't tell, I genuinely really like because I wear those 2 styles of shoes the most. And so I like that it has like this sportier look, but it also has a nice casual look, so you can dress it up with like jeans or pants and they don't look super out of place. Plus, something that I like, because I am pretty lazy with my laces, is that I like that you can wear this unlaced or laced. When I wear these out and about casually, I'll actually wear them like this, so they're unlaced. And some people might not like that look, but I personally really dig the ability that I can wear this unlaced on a casual basis and not lack security, because this boot does lock you down pretty well. So I do like that about this model. It adds to its overall versatility when it comes to daily wear and just like slipping on this shoe and going out and about and not having to necessarily lace it or unlace it every single time. The third pro that I have with the shoe is that I like the overall articulation you get with the sole, and I like the sole tread patterning. So with this model, you have a stack height of 5.5 millimeters. That stack height is the culmination of a 2 millimeter Strobel board, which is this internal insole construction, and then a 3.5 millimeter thick high abrasion rubber outsole. So I like that about this model. You get super close to the ground, so if you do want a ton of ground feel with this shoe, I think you'll get that with this model. Also, with the tread patterning, it's a little bit more aggressive than the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3, and yes, I will be referencing that model a few times throughout this review because I feel like the TOLOS Archetype 1.0 is the most comparable shoe to the Primus Lite 3, but I like the tread patterning on this model. It gives you a little bit more grip. It's a little bit more aggressive for different surfaces and context, so I do enjoy that about this model. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. 2 potential cons that I could see folks having with the TOLOS Archetype 1.0 is number 1, this model does not come with removable insoles. So if you are new to barefoot shoes and if you do want an insole to give you a little bit more cushion to separate your foot from the floor as you acclimate to this style of footwear, that is not going to be something you're going to get with the Archetype 1.0, or if you're just somebody who likes having a removable insole in your barefoot shoes to give you a little bit of variability and feel, that is also something that you want to consider with this model, because at this time, TOLOS does not sell additional insoles. So like with Field Grounds, their shoes don't come with insoles. However, they sell additional insoles, which do fit the last constructions of those models. So since TOLOS doesn't sell additional insoles, you can use your insoles from other barefoot shoes. However, there can be a little bit of discrepancy, so it's not going to be the perfect fit, but it will work. But that is something to consider with this model. Hopefully TOLOS comes out with a small additional insole down the road, because I do think it would be cool to add a little bit of variability and feel that you get with this shoe. The second potential con that I could see folks having with this model is that with this booty style construction here, it is a little bit more secure in nature, so it doesn't have a ton of stretch to it. Now, I don't think that's an issue because with these dual straps here, it's easy to pull on if you use both of these. But if you have thicker feet, or if you're like really sweaty, because I learned this after one of my workouts, this shoe can be a little bit tough to get on at times. It's not a make or break for performance, and honestly, it doesn't really deter me from this shoe at all, but it is something that I could see other folks having an issue with the Archetype 1.0. But overall, those are the 2 cons that I have with the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. Thus far, this shoe has been a really strong model for daily wear and working out. But now let's talk about the performance of the Archetype 1.0. Hey, just a quick reminder, if you are not subscribed to the channel and if you're liking this review and if you like content similar to this review, I think you'll enjoy the channel, so consider subscribing. It takes 2 seconds, it's free. You can always unsubscribe down the road if you get tired of seeing this ugly mug. But that being said, let's dive back into the review. To break down the performance of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, I'm going to talk about how the shoe performs for lifting, versatile training, short runs, and daily wear. in the context of lifting, I have thoroughly enjoyed the Archetype 1.0. Honestly, it has quickly become one of my most worn minimalist shoes for lifting weights, and whether you want it for barbell training, accessory movements, or just going through like some kettlebell circuits, this model should work really well. You get a nice level of security through the boot and through the upper, so you get a nice lockdown feeling, and with this tread on the outsole, you don't really have any slip issues when you're squatting, deadlifting heavy, and whatnot, so I do like this model's performance for lifting, and it feels pretty durable for that context. Also, you get a nice level of articulation with this sole, and again, the stack height of this shoe is at 5.5 millimeters, so it is very comparable to other barefoot shoes on the market as well that are designed for training. When it comes to versatile training, I also really enjoy this shoe. And so for those contexts, that's where I will lace this model up to give myself additional security. And for the most part, I have not had many knocks on the shoe for versatile training. So you get a nice level of tread once again with this sole, and you do have a nice lockdown feeling in this shoe. And it feels very sock-like on the foot, which I do like for my plyometrics and for my sessions where I'm blending lifting with plyos or agility work. So I like that about this model. The only thing with versatile training with this shoe is that when doing heavier sled pushes on turf, I was having a little bit of slip. However, I have similar issues with the Primus Lite 3 and other shoes that don't have as aggressive tread patterns. So just something to think about. But when it comes to like unweighted stuff on turf or just for accessory movements like kettlebell swings and kettlebell snatches, I didn't have slip issues. It was just when I was really pushing heavier loads across turf in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. When it comes to shorter runs, honestly, this isn't necessarily my favorite minimalist shoe for running, and that's for two key reasons. Number one, you don't get as much breathability with this polyester mesh upper. So if you do want more breathability, or if you just plan to wear this shoe for longer runs, you might find that it runs a little bit hot for that context. And number two, honestly, I like this shoe so much for daily wear. I don't want to break it down too fast running in them. I'll use my HFS or Zelen if I am going to go out for a run in my barefoot shoes, or I'll reach for my Vivo Barefoot Geo Racer knit for that context. So you can definitely run in this model. It's just not my favorite because of the breathability, and I would rather save the durability for daily wear and lifting and versatile training. And then when it comes to daily wear, I have thoroughly enjoyed the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. They are pretty dang comfortable. I like that I could wear them unlaced, and they have a nice casual look. And now I know beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you could very well be looking at this shoe thinking, that's not a good looking barefoot shoe. But I think if you do like the appearance of this shoe, both of the colorways that TOLOS currently have look pretty dang good. And I like that I could wear this with jeans, shorts, or just with gym clothes, and that they don't really look out of place or like kind of like clown shoes like some barefoot shoes can. So I do like the toe box construction, the appearance, and the overall simplistic vibe that the TOLOS Archetype 1.0 has for daily wear. So when it comes to the price of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, you can expect to pay $115 USD. Honestly, I feel like that price point is pretty fair for what this shoe has to offer. Plus, if you look at comparable models from Fieldgrounds, they're pretty much priced the same as those models. And if you look at something like a Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3, this model costs $160, so you will be saving $45 by going with the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. And honestly, it performs the same, in my opinion, as the Primus Lite 3, so I do like the price point for the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. All right, so now let's answer the question, who should invest in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0? So I think this model will honestly work for a wide range of folks. And honestly, it's quickly becoming one of the minimalist shoes that I most often recommend when folks are on the fence of like, should I get a shoe for daily wear, working out, what can I wear? That will blend both of those really well. That also looks pretty good. I like the price point of this shoe, honestly, for being a first pass, because this shoe will only get improved as TOLOS is a newer company. This model has held its own really well against some of the market's top shoes. So I really enjoy that about this model, and for the price point, for their appearance, and for their performance, I feel like this model can be an awesome option for a wide range of individuals. So when it comes to the sizing and fit in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, I think most folks should be safe going true to size in this model. One thing I will note about TOLOS is that they're in the process of building out a sizing guide at the moment. So if you go on the site and you search for it, you're not gonna be able to find it, which could be a knock against this model because they are very new in the game and they are still building that out. But this model does fit pretty true. And when it comes to the width of this model, it's comparable to a Fieldground shoe, and it is also pretty comparable to the Vivo Barefoot models. So if you wear either of those shoes and you're looking at the TOLOS model, I think you should be safe width-wise in the shoe, and going true to size should be a safe call for most folks. So when it comes to the weight drop and insole in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, for my size 10 model here, We have a weight of 7.65 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this shoe is obviously 0 millimeters because it is a minimalist shoe. And then this model, once again, does not come with a removable insole. All right, so now let's cover the construction of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. So looking at the upper of this model, we have a polyester mesh and it has a water resistant coating that extends back here to the heel, to the midfoot, up to the forefoot. And then we also have reinforced TPU layers back here on the heel and around the toe box. I personally like this for durability for daily wear, but then also for security when working out in this shoe. We have 5 core eyelets that wrap up. We have 4 eyelets right here that have like an internal lacing system, and then 1/5 traditional eyelet back here. And we do have a little bit of separation from the outside of the shoe and the booty style construction. We also have a loop on this tongue for additional security. And then we have 2 tabs here, one back external heel tab, and then we have a tongue tab. These can really help pull the shoe on, so I would highly suggest using them when putting the shoe on. And that'll also just keep your boot structure a little bit more true, as opposed to like breaking this boot down, trying to like jam your foot in this model. Looking at the branding of this shoe, we have some TOLOS branding here on the lateral side of the model, back here on the heel, and then up here on the tongue. Looking at the outsole, we have a high abrasion rubber outsole. The tread patterning of this shoe is a little bit more aggressive than other minimalist shoes on the market, and I personally like that for daily wear and for training. And we also have a nice level of articulation with this shoe. The stack height, once again, for this model is 5.5 millimeters. That is 3.5 millimeters for this rubber sole, and then that's 2 millimeters for the strobel board on the inside of this model, which is the sewn-in insole. And then once again, this model does not come with a removable insole, and the sock liner for this shoe is built with a polyester blend. Overall, though, that pretty much makes up the gist of this shoe's construction, or at least like the big details of this model. But if you have additional questions on the construction of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, drop a comment down below. All right, so let's do a quick comparison of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0 and the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3. Since I wear both shoes for daily wear and working out, I thought these models were great to compare to one another. Plus, I've already had a couple of asks about these two shoes. So 5 major differences to note about these models is number 1, the upper constructions. In the Primus Lite 3, you get a little bit more breathability with this mesh upper through the forefoot and midfoot, whereas with the polyester mesh with the water resistant coating in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, it can run a little bit hotter. However, when you look at these shoes for daily wear, I think the TOLOS almost has like a more formal look to it versus the Primus Lite 3, which has more of like a sporty gym-esque look. So both uppers are solid. However, you do get a bit more breathability in the Primus, but I think the upper in the TOLOS looks a little bit more formal. The second major difference to note about these shoes is the outsoles or the sole tread patternings. In the Vivo Barefoot, you get this active sole. It's like this hexagon tread patterning. It's not super aggressive in nature. And then over here in the TOLOS, you have this high abrasion sole that has a bit more tread depth to it. So you do get a little bit more grip out of the TOLOS model compared to the Primus Lite 3. And then the third major difference between these shoes is that the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3 has a more traditional tongue construction, which could be both a good or bad thing depending on what you want. And then in the TOLOS model, it's more of a booty style construction. So both models are fine, I think, when it comes to tongue security and with how that tongue performs and how the boot performs for training and daily wear, but it is something to think about before you invest in these models. And back here in the TOLOS with this booty style construction, it is a little bit more rigid in nature when it comes to like giving you a bit more structure. And then over here in the Vivo Barefoot Primus Lite 3, you don't have a ton of structure to the boot. So neither is necessarily good nor bad, it just comes down to preferences. And then a fourth major difference between these shoes is that in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, you can rock this model laced or unlaced and it's going to stay secure on your foot. That is not an option that you have with the Primus Lite 3. I have an older model, so I also have like the janky lacing system, whereas in the newer models, you do get those slightly thicker laces, which I kind of think look gaudy, but you do have a bit better of a lacing system in the newer models. But again, the lacing system in the Primus Lite 3 has never really been one of my favorite perks of that shoe because honestly, the laces that they use just don't make a lot of sense. The fifth major difference to note about these shoes is that for the Primus Lite 3, this model costs $160 USD, whereas in the TOLOS Archetype 1.0, you're gonna pay $115 USD. I think if you just want a shoe for daily wear and for training, and if you're not necessarily sold on the Vivo Barefoot, honestly, the TOLOS works really well and it's gonna save you a little bit of money, so that would definitely be something to think about, especially if you are on a budget. But when it comes to their sizing and fit, they are pretty dang comparable when it comes to width. The Primus Lite 3 does have like a tiny bit of a wider toe box. However, it is so negligible that I don't think most folks are going to notice it. And honestly, in both shoes, I have plenty of room through the toe box, so that is something to think about. And in the Primus Lite 3, in addition to their sizing, they don't have half sizes, which can be pretty annoying, especially if you are like a 9.5, 8.5, 10.5, etc. So just something to think about with the Primus Lite 3 is that with their sizing system, it can be a little bit hit or miss based on what you need. But overall, both of these shoes are really solid, and honestly, you can't really fault either one when it comes to daily wear and for training. I think it's just gonna come down to your preferences in regard to what you want out of your shoes when it comes to their core features. All right guys, that wraps up my review of the TOLOS Archetype 1.0. If you have additional questions on this shoe, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.